Good morning. Okay, so we're going to move on just a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we're still going to have to convert the fractions, decimals, and percents, but our purpose now is to put them in order, to compare them and put them in order. So first of all, when you see the word compare, they're talking about less than or greater than. When you see order, it's usually going to be least to greatest. Not always, but usually it'll be least to greatest. All right, so let's look at our first directions. Let's review. Turn these into percents. So remember, a couple days ago, I taught you the easiest way is check the denominator first. If that denominator is a factor of 100, you can do 25 times 4 and 2 times 4, and that will get us to 8 hundredths, and 8 hundredths equals 8%. Now remember, we started using our calculators, and the fraction bar means to divide. So this means 7 divided by 8. So we're going to go to the calculator and do 7 divided by 8. My calculator says 0.875, 875 thousandths. So that's the decimal, but I need the percent. For the percent, you're going to slide that decimal 2 places to the right. So that answer would be 87.5%. 9 is not a factor of 100, so we're going to do 1 divided by 9 on the calculator. I'm on my calculator right now. So my calculator says 0.11111 and on and on and on. So that is the decimal, but we need to convert to the percent. I'm going to slide my decimal 2 places to the right. So that would be 11.1 repeating percent. Next set of directions. Now let's compare. Remember, comparing numbers means tell which one is less than or greater than. So which is greater? Let me find a different color. So we're looking at 3/20ths or 16%. Which is greater, 3/20ths or 16%? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do 3 divided by 20. 3 divided by 20 is 15 hundredths, which is equal to 15%. Well, 15% is clearly less than 16%. Remember, when you order numbers, you have to order the original numbers given. So my answer would say 3/20ths is less than 16%. Which is greater, 7/25ths or 25%? I always like to turn all of my numbers into percents. I've just found that easier. You can choose to turn them all into decimals, all into fractions, or all into percents, whichever you prefer. They just have to be the same form of a number. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do 7 divided by 25, and that says 0 and 28 hundredths. And I know that is equal to 28%. So now I'm comparing 28% to 25%. 28% is clearly greater. So my answer would say 7/25ths is greater than 25%. Which is greater, 12 hundredths or 1.2%? Well, I know that 12 hundredths is equal, if I slide that decimal twice to the right, that is equal to 12%. So comparing 12% to 1 2/10%, 12% is greater. So we're going to order the original numbers. So 0 and 12 hundredths is greater than 1 2/10%. Tell which number is greater. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do 7 divided by 9. My calculator says 0.7777 and on and on and on. So I'm going to move my decimal twice to the right. So that is equal to 77.7 repeating percent. So I'm comparing this to 70%. So my answer would say 7/9 is greater than 70%. Which number is greater, 9/10 or 91%? Move your decimal twice to the right, put in a 0. So 90/100 is 90%. So we're comparing 90% to 91%. So I would say 0 and 9/10 is less than 91%. Which number is greater? So we're going to move our decimal twice to the right. We'd have to put in a 0. So 1 5/10 is equal to 150%. Oh, look at that. So I would say 1 5/10 is equal to 150%. All right, so we've got one more page. So now we're going to do something a little bit different. Now it says, use a number line to order the numbers from least to greatest. Use a number line. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the numbers that we have. You don't want to start numbering your number line until you know what numbers you have to place. So if you only have to place numbers between 0 and 1, you don't want a number line that goes from 0 to 100 because all your numbers are going to be crunched down at one end. So let's look and see first what we're going to be ordering. So before I said I always like to convert all to percents. So for this one, I've already got a percent. I know that 42/100 is equal to 42%. And now I'm going to go to my calculator and do 9 divided by 25, which says 36/100. So that is equal to 36%. Okay, so that gives me an idea of how I should number. So since all of my numbers are between 0 and 50, I am going to put 0% at the far left, and I'm going to put 50% to the far right. Well, halfway between 0 and 50 is 25. So I'm going to try to eyeball that where about 25% would be. I'm going to make that line a little bit darker. That's a benchmark. So there's 25%. So that if that's 25%, that would be about 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, 45. Okay, so as long as it's about close enough, it doesn't have to be exact. So 37%. So 37, this is 25, this is 30, this is 35, this is 40. So 37%, let me choose a different color to make that stand out. So 37% would be about right here. When you place numbers on the number line, you're going to put a dot and the number. You cannot just have random dots all over your number line. You have to identify that dot with the number. You are going to put the original number given in the problem. So we're going to call that 37%. All right, go back to the pink. So 42%. So 25, 30, 35, 40. This is 40. This is 45. Go back to the green. So 42% would be about right here. Now, in the problem that was given to me is 0 and 42/100. So that's how I'm going to name it. 0 and 42/100. And then the last one was 36%, which is going to come right before 37%. So I'm actually going to choose a different color. I'll do blue. So those 2 points. So 36% is going to come right after 35%. And that was 9/25. So that's the number that I have to label on my number line. And done. All right, so let's take a look at our next set of numbers. So this one is already a percent. I've got 15/100%. 1 5/10, and I'm going to slide that decimal twice to the right, which means I'd put a 0 in there. That's going to be 150%. 3/20. I'm going to go to my calculator and do 3 divided by 20. That's 15%. I'm going to write that one up here. And I've got 1%. Okay, so now our numbers are going between 0 and 150%. So we're going to have a wide range of numbers. So I'm going to put 0% to the far left and 150% to the far right. All right, so 150 divided by 2 is 75. So I'm going to put 75% in the middle. Now, think about 0.15% 0.15% is less than 1%. So if it's less than 1%, it's going to be sitting right beside that zero, as close as I can possibly get it, right there. So I'm going to label that as my 0 and 0.15%. My 150%, or my 1 5/10, would go right above, because those two numbers are equal. And I also kind of like to cross those out once I've labeled them on my number line so I don't forget. 15%. Okay, so if 75 is halfway, I'm going to try to guess this out for a minute here. So halfway between 75 and 0, so I'm going to put 35. 35% would be about, I should probably go back to blue. So 35% would be about right here. And so then we have, those are going to be pretty close together. So let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So 15%, 5, 10, 15. Okay. So my 3/20 is going to go down here. And 1% is the only one we have left. And 1% is going to be sitting right beside, right down here, between 0% and 5%. Those were pretty close together. All right, let's see what we got. Move the decimal twice to the right. This is 377%. 3 7/8. So I'm going to go to my calculator. 7 divided by 8 is 875 thousandths. So this is going to be 387.5%. 16/5 on my calculator. 16 divided by 5 is 3.2. Move the decimal twice to the right. That would be 320%. And 390% is already listed as a percent. All right, so these all go between, so my lowest number is 320, my highest is 390. So I'm just going to go from 300 to 400%. Whoops. So 300% to the far left and 400% to the far right. Halfway between those would be 350%. Okay, so 377. So this would be 375%. This would be 325%. So I'm going to find a different color to mark my numbers. So 377%, which was originally 3 77/100ths, is going to go right here. 387 5/10, that's going to go not too far away, and that was listed as 3 7/8. 320% is going to go right in front of 325%. So I'm going to put that dot right here, and that's going to have to be labeled as 16/5. 390% is going to go way down by 400%. And that was given to me as 390%. Last one. You answered 13 out of 16 questions correctly on a test. Did you reach your goal of setting at least 80%? You're going to turn that into a fraction. You got 13 out of 16. On your calculator, you're going to do numerator divided by denominator. And that says 0.8125. 0 and 8,125 10,000ths. Now we're going to move that decimal twice to the right. So that is equal to 81 and 25/100ths%, which is greater than 80%. Yes. Explain. 81 and 25% is greater than 80%. And done.